Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A very, very good evening to all of you. Welcome to KFUPM Business School Ascend E-Venture and Nisum's joint webinar on how to optimize your organization's efficiency with a hybrid work model. Today with me, we have two very special speakers all the way from Silicon Valley, and Mr. Jaz Narayan and Ms. Sharon Singam with me. Just to give you guys a bit of a background about both of them, they are members of Nisum's Business Agility Division. Both were raised in the heart of Silicon Valley, which exposed them to the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Making their way through bootstrapping startups to enterprise-level companies, they have gained invaluable exposure to growth at different levels. They're also enterprise agile coaches who have helped many organizations transform their processes to foster productivity. In these unprecedented times, they have further developed their agile mindsets and are constantly adapting to new challenges. We have also Mr. Mustafa Ahmed, who is a lecturer of e-commerce at KFUPM Business School and the founder and CEO of Ascend E-Ventures, another digital revolution agency. We're proud to present to you a Nisum Ascend E-Ventures and KBS joint webinar. I hand it over to Jaz, Sharon, and Mustafa.
Why don't you go first, Mustafa?
Well, first of all, thanks everyone for joining. I appreciate Jaz and Sharon taking time out of their schedules and meeting with us. So in our webinar today, we have audiences from all over, and we have students that are taking a number of different classes. So it's a pleasure of mine to welcome you virtually, and we hope to have you visit one day in person. So ahlan wa sahlan, as they say in Arabic, welcome. Thanks so much again, taking the time out. I always appreciate it, especially when you have industrial professionals that are working and taking time out to share with our students. So, in terms of, last couple of years has been very profound in terms of how the world has changed. So I was on a call earlier today with a big box retailer out of New York, and we were discussing the same thing, right? How digital has changed pretty much every single industry, and so I'm so happy to speak to both of you. For you, working from home is nothing new, right? So WFH is something you have been doing, Nisum does for a living for many, many years, a decade, if so. So this is why, your invitation and your presence here is so important for us as our students, discover this new way of working, studying, and pretty much every industry has been affected by the pandemic. So this is why, very, very happy to have you. And so please go ahead, in terms of having a discussion. I'd like to start off, just to get the ball rolling in terms of, how do leaders in Nisum, keep people motivated? I know at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a novelty of working from home, studying from home. It was all cool, but that wore off pretty quickly. So how do you guys keep motivated? So if you could talk about some of the tools you're using, your experiences, that'd be really good. So maybe Sharon, you can start with this. That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely. In our presentation, we'll go into more detail, but I'll highlight a couple ideas of things that we've experienced and cultivated for the teams that we work with. Essentially, employees need to be aligned with the people that they work with and the work that they do. If there's a misalignment, motivating them will be very challenging. And being able to cultivate sort of a friendly work environment is really important. So everyone's motivated by different things. Some people get really excited at the opportunity to have a hackathon. Some people are very excited to just be able to have a Zoom where there's no agenda and it's just a virtual tea break. So I've seen and I've created those different type of opportunities with the teams that I've worked with at Gap or within the consultants at Nisum. I know in our presentation, we'll give more details on even more ideas of ways to really unleash the excitement and motivation in others.
Yeah, and to add to Sharon's point here, one of the biggest tools in the Scrum Master's toolbook is called a retrospective. And this is something that in the Agile world, it's practiced all the time. And it's not just the Agile world, we do that with ourselves. It's called self-reflection, right? And in a retrospective, well, I guess to give a bit of an overview of what happened and how do we come around and why did we write that blog and why are we here in front of you presenting? When the pandemic hit last year, I mean, Sharon and I, we were working in a hybrid model at that particular point. We were going into the office a couple of days a week, and a couple of days of the week we were working from home. There was flexibility already there, set up in our system. But when the pandemic hit, what we realized when we talked to our business agility unit at Nisum is that for a lot of folks, working from home is a new thing. Even though we are in the forefront of Silicon Valley, we realized that a good amount of our teammates, they may not have had full 100% work from home experience before. So to them, it's a dynamic that's never been presented, and that's an adjustment. And for some, it's a tougher adjustment than others. So what we did as a unit, we got together and we held a retrospective, which we did for 2 sessions, actually, 2-hour sessions. First was we did the retrospective, we kind of talked some things through, and as all project managers and Scrum Masters could say, we probably have too much to speak sometimes. So we ended up being 2 sessions, and out of those 2 sessions came out something that was beautiful. Sharon and I, we ventured together, and in a few months' time, of course, 1 or 2 hours per week getting together, we dialed everything down to 12 optimization hacks that we as individuals could do that could help you or anybody. Actually, we didn't think of it as like we're working in the tech world and this is only going to help tech workers. We just thought we're human. We're having this experience. The pandemic is real. It's happening. Businesses are shut off. What can we do to help each other out? So out of that, this is what came about. Sharon, maybe you could do a quick round robin intro to our topics, and then we could dive right in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we broke it into different categories, as you can see on the screen here. We have productivity hacks, and this is applicable to anybody. If you're going into the office, you're working from home, it doesn't matter the environment, it's still applicable. Being able to really engage with the people that you're working with, staying engaged with colleagues, and some ideas around that I had touched on. Great ways to glean motivation tactics from those. And the last 2 are striking a good work-life balance, because I think we need it now more than ever before, as our work day sort of bleeds into our personal day, creating and reestablishing those boundaries and making sure we're taking care of ourselves. We'll talk about some great tips to be mindful of and more aware of. And the last category is, this is what business school students really love to hear, is just how to make your leadership skills shine. And this is, you take this into your classroom, you take this into your jobs, you take this into the areas of your life that you're doing volunteer work in the community, you will definitely make a difference. So as Jaz mentioned, we have lived through these. We took some time to really refine what our tips are. We didn't just write it in one day. It took us several months to really kind of go through what we were doing and kind of fine tuning it. There are more hacks. We'll send out an email after this webinar, so that way everyone can get some references, some links, recommendations, a variety of more things. But these are just the top 12 we want to share with you during this time you have with us. So let's start with the useful productivity hacks. The first thing, oh, go ahead.
We will intentionally not share our slide deck because we want the message to come across and for you to visualize these things happening in your day-to-day life so you could live through it. So memory works better that way if you could actually visualize versus just reading something off of the slide. So hence the active choice of not to show each and every slide. There is a blog we wrote about this. So if you guys want to get into more detail and information, read that. That would be helpful. But for now, Sharon and I will just share our personal experiences and how that works into this model. So Sharon, go for it. Sorry, cut you out there.
Thank you. Thank you. So the first thing for productivity hacks is to be consistent in your routines. So whatever you do to start your day, try to be consistent, whether that's starting your day with your breakfast, getting dressed, doing your maintenance, shaving and, makeup, whatever it is, even if you're going to just roll into the next room and open up your laptop. Having a routine is so important because it sets your mind for this is now my work day. I'm going to start my day. The last thing you want to do is just roll out of bed with your phone or your laptop, responding to emails, still wearing your sleeping clothes and like half awake, starting to knock out the priorities of the day. Having that routine where you start your day the way you would normally start your day if you were going to go take your car and commute to the office or take the bus. Continue to keep that time for yourself and get ready for your day. Additionally, what's really important is take a coffee break, take a tea break, go refill your water, stay hydrated, and have a break away from your computer for lunch. It's so easy to get sucked in to not take a lunch break and to just eat while you're responding to emails. Please do yourself the honor to take a break for your lunch.
Sticking with consistency and routines, there is a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he writes specifically about these things. It's like he talks about if you do the same things over and over again, it doesn't become a matter of a decision that is going to be made. It's a given. You wake up in the morning, you make your bed. I think the Upanishads even write about something like that, right? Like they write about the fact that whatever you're doing, make sure you're not creating more chaos, you're reducing chaos in life and making something as your bed or waking up in the morning, having your coffee or your breakfast or some things like that. Things you used to do. Just because you're not going to go to work doesn't mean you can't continue doing that, because the trick isn't tricking the mind to believe that it's now at the work location and now it could be productive. If your mind believes it's at home now where it can relax and chill and Netflix and chill or whatever, that's not going to help, right? That's going to put you in a bad set where you're always struggling to get into the mindset of work and you're like, oh, it's frustrating. I've gone through this many times through the many years of trying to work from home. The next one, it's a really big one, is creating a designated workspace. And this one, Sharon and I, we both have little ones. I have two little ones. I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. So to me, this little area that I have, this is my room. That's why I sleep and come back over here, and it's very important because my kid is 3.5 now. And throughout his entire life, he's known that whenever dad comes sits here in this corner of the room, he's working. To this day, I could leave anything on my desk. And this may not be true for all kids because all kids are different. But because we did this on a day-to-day basis and we didn't deviate from the plan, he doesn't come and touch my laptop. He doesn't come and touch my keyboards. He doesn't write on my book. My pen's out here. Like, I just leave it like that. But he'll go on his own thing and he'll write all over the house, but not here because he knows this is where daddy works. Sharon, maybe you could add something to that.
Yeah, it's definitely important to have a designated space because it helps us, at least for me. I know that when I'm sitting in this part of my child's room with the bay windows, this is my workspace. So I'm now transforming from being Sharon, the mom, or Sharon, the wife, to this part, I'm Sharon, the worker. And it sends those clues to the other people in my household, like, this is work. This is not the time to distract me. I might be on a call. My husband will knock on the door, say, are you on a call? And he'll know that this is a space that I'm working in and I need more concentration. If I step away, I'm on a break. So having those has helped me, and it also sends those cues to the others in the household. It's really helpful. Let's move on to the next tip, which is, now that you have your designated workspace, be mindful of your body and have an ergonomic space that works best for your body, so you're not working at the end of the day with a little bit of a stiff neck, soreness in your back. So how do you create that? What does that mean? Well, we don't have any ergonomic consultants that are coming to our home to set it up. So do a little bit of research. You can find a YouTube video. So basically, you want to have an extra monitor that is a little bit bigger and at eye height. If you don't have that, maybe raise your laptop with some chunky books that maybe don't need to be opened all the time, maybe have never been opened. Now we have a use for those books. You could elevate your laptop a little bit higher. You can find a different type of chair to sit on that actually supports your body, that doesn't raise your shoulders up, but it allows you to sit in a proper posture way. I mean, it's so comfortable to like just lay on the couch or lay on a bed. Not great for our bodies. We're not going to be productive when we're hurting, and maybe we're too comfortable. We might fall asleep. I don't know. One other thing that I heard was someone on my team used an ironing board because it makes a great standing desk. You can change that way you have like a standing desk. Those were some of the great tips that I've seen, used, and heard about. What about you, Jaz? What are some ergonomic tips that you've used?
Next level stuff. You take your ironing board, you put it in an empty closet. Now you have office space. you know?
Yeah.
You know, like we live here in the Silicon Valley. The housing prices are just ridiculous, right? So a lot of the times, if you're starting off your career, you probably don't have the means to afford a house or something like that. So you may be in a one-bedroom apartment somewhere, and you know, sometimes you got to make do with what you have. So like having a designated corner or something like that. I've heard somebody, it's like, well, when I'm done with work, I just close my closet door and I'm done. You know, so I thought that was kind of hilarious and fun, because that person has a standing desk and it doesn't cost them thousands of dollars, you know, like, because some desks could be very expensive. But yeah, ergonomics wise, you got to make sure, like, I have an extra keyboard. You don't use your laptop's keyboard, things like that. Keep yourself a good distance from your laptop, not like right in the screen, things of that. You know, to a certain degree, a lot of the things you guys are going to be like, oh yeah, duh, we do this all the time anyways. But no, that's things we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. When you write things down and all of a sudden you're like, oh, geez, I guess I've been doing that for the last decade or two, you know? So when Sharon and I, we went through these things, some of the stuff, we were like, hey, you know, because we actually experienced this. Our life got better because we went through each one of these steps, and we're like, hey, I could take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, minus that, add that, and that becomes your own recipe, because each person is unique and different. You know, we're all living in this God's earth, and we're all unique creatures. So, all right. So that was the first section. That was useful productivity hacks. Now, staying engaged with colleagues. This is probably one of the toughest things to do now that we are all in a virtual world living together, right? As some of you have already heard of the metaverse coming around. So that hasn't exactly happened yet, but we're getting there. Zoom's one of the first starts. So first off, creating virtual spaces. So what do we mean by that? So imagine yourself in actual 9 to 5, you're going into work. When you get up from your desk, or you go to get coffee, or you're doing things in between, there are so many times that you actually interact with people, your colleagues, your teammates, and those little chitty chatter conversations that happened. I know some people may think it's like, oh, that's just people not being a little bit lazy, they just want to talk and blah, blah, blah. it's in human nature to talk. That's like suppressing talk is more unnatural than it is the other way around, right? So when that little chatter happens, cross-contamination of information occurs too, that we don't take into consideration. If somebody from HR talks to somebody from tech, and all of a sudden HR knows something about tech and they fix a problem that they may not have fixed if those two entities just existed in the silos. So that space that used to exist in a 9-to-5 space doesn't quite exactly exist very well in our virtual world. How do we remedy that? So one of the things that we could do is we could create virtual spaces, right? Like we use communication tools like Slack, Teams, all these different avenues of communication. We could have what I learned from Sharon a little while back was like a virtual water cooler. You know, it's a water cooler conversation, but it's virtual. And you set the rules for it. Basically, anything you could share, anything you want, personal or what be, optimistically non-work related, because we talk about work stuff all the time. So something non-work related would be good. It's like, my kid just had a birthday, let's share him a picture. Or like, we just did this. How many people go out and do so many things now during the pandemic? We really don't. So we could kind of live vicariously through each other a little bit too. You know, that's kind of nice and talk about these things. So yeah, Sharon, any other ideas for those virtual spaces?
Yeah. So in addition to the water cooler chats, I like having scheduled, and it sounds like too formal, but I like having scheduled once every 2 weeks, a virtual coffee or tea break. And whoever wants to attend can, and it could be, say, 2 people at the minimum come. 2 people get to have a conversation and talk together that they haven't had a chance to really catch up and talk to. Great things come out of that casual conversation. And it could be a 15-minute scheduled break that not everyone will come, but if there's some consistency after some time, people will know, oh yeah, it's that time. Let me drop in. Let me refresh my tea and come join. And it's a great way to bring people together when you're not in person. In the next tip would be to schedule game time, which sounds like not like it doesn't belong in the workplace, but it really does. Jaz and I really refined this tip, and the teams that we were working with, our respective teams at Gap Tech, loved it and really enjoyed this. There's a couple different ways that you can present this to teams. There could be just a silly game that's conducted online, like Pictionary. Pictionary is a game about drawing something and everyone has to guess what the word is. There's great free tools that are easy, effortless to sign into. And if 5 people, 10 people join, everyone is having a great time for those 30 minutes that you have it. If you could extend it to an hour, everyone's having rounds and rounds of fun. And why not? I mean, we need that to be able to motivate ourselves, to bring people together and to relax, because when you feel that way and trouble happens and people need to come together, they're that much closer together. So having a game time, there's some links that we will share after this webinar to get you guys started. And I really hope to hear that you guys have tried it, because you're going to love it. There's some really good ones.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, when we like, even at Gap, like I'm currently at Gap as a Scrum Master. So originally, when the pandemic hit, before that, we never really had anything as like a schedule a game time, and we would just get together and we just play games. It was more or less like we could go on happy hour, we could go to dinner, we could go to lunch as a team, you know, things like that. But those options are not available anymore. And even the most staunchest of managers who are all work, no play, even they have come around. And now whenever we propose something like a game, like, great, do it, you know, just make sure it's like on a day that is easiest for folks. It's like, just do it, because they see the value. They see the fact that, you know, you could have a mature team to a certain maturity, but you need these extracurricular activities to build trust between the team members. And if there's trust and they could depend on each other, they don't have to rely on a central source, which would be like a manager or somebody, to work I mean, what is a manager anyways? A manager just prods a person along and unlocks the untapped potential for human beings, right? So they're great at asking questions. They're great at prodding them along, moving them to a certain direction. And this nuance, something like game time, it doesn't even have to be game time. It could be something that, hey, we just really like to do this thing together. Just get together and do it, you know?
A ritual.
That helps. Yeah, some sort of ritual, whatever it is. Just get together and do it. And that builds camaraderie, that builds trust. And with trust becomes a more mature team. And when all parts of the team are interconnected and they could all survive one without the other to a certain degree, autonomy gets created. Now you have highly mature teams. And that's probably one of the definitions of getting to higher mature teams, is that nuance, is that gray area. Because I could hire 100 people and tell them exactly what to do, but that's what we have automation for, right? Human beings are bred for creative. We should be creative. And if we are not allowed to be free and creative and lose a little bit, stagnation of progress, that's what happens. So I know that's way too much of a point to make about game time, but we just feel so strongly about this because Sharon and I, we had so many back and forths about this before we even put it down as a thing. It's like, hey, are we really going to write that? It's like, yeah, it's that important. So yeah. And then the next bit, sharing appreciation often. This goes back to the trust, the building up of each other, helping each other. Like, we don't know what people are going through in their day-to-day lives. Even when we used to do the 9 to 5, we see the tip of the iceberg, right? We're the tip of the iceberg. There's so many things that go on in the background that we don't know. We have no idea. We could just assume. And that's, so once in a while, just saying, hey, Sharon, thank you for doing X, Y, and Z. I hope you have a great day. It goes a long way, you know, instead of like, did you do that thing for me? You didn't do that, huh? Okay, well, I expect it in 2 hours, you know? Yeah, I could have turned it around. It's like, how are you doing today? You know, by the way, that thing that X, Y, and Z, you know, Sharon would be like, now she'll feel guilty. She'll be like, oh my God, I didn't do this for this person. It's like, so I don't know, to a certain degree, just like thanking people, you know, it doesn't have to be a manager thanking people. It could just be you as a teammate thanking other teammates. It's a beautiful thing. And that energy is contagious because that like gets everybody going. Everybody starts thinking like, now we should be grateful for X, Y, and Z. And the feeling of gratefulness, it's like I write a gratitude journal every morning. It's been scientifically proven that your mind changes. There's a shift that happens in your brain. You're not being a pessimistic anymore. You're looking for the opportunity, the growth in things, instead of looking at like all the things that went bad or all the things that went wrong. Sharon, something else you want to add to that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I would say along your lines and all the great nuggets that you're sharing is positivity is contagious. And if we want to have a happy group of people that we work with, we want people to feel happy about the work that they do. Sharing appreciations and acknowledging them will go over so far. I mean, it makes such a profound difference. Now, some people, it may never change how they feel. Just continue to be who you are and acknowledge and appreciate them. But for most other people, it's going to make a difference. And if that makes the difference and people feel happier and people are more positive and people are going to be coming together and supporting each other and supporting the organization's goals and the project's goals that you have. So it goes a long way. Let's move on to striking a good work-life balance, because I don't know who's working the neat little 8 hours a day, but work finds a way to tug and get your attention. And at least on my watch, I'm alerted at all hours of the day of all kinds of things related to work. So it's definitely a struggle, and it's a practice that I try to improve upon each and every day. So one of the first tips that we acknowledge and recognize is taking a walk to reset. So how do I find time in my day to do that? I definitely try to do it on the bookmarks of my day or the bookends of my day. So in the morning, I drop off my kid at school. I live in the city of San Francisco, so it's walking distance. I walk him to school, and on the way back home, I don't go directly back home. I walk the long way back home, or I find like a new hill to walk up and then come around to get home. So I can get some walking in. I can get myself ready and feel like my mind is clear and ready to go, and I'm ready to tackle my day. Ideally, it's good to walk maybe after lunchtime, like have a very quick lunch and then go for a walk just to break up your day a little bit, give your body a change of scenery, movement really helps. How do you, Jaz, get walking in your day?
You know, I got a little 3-year-old, right? So he's always tugging at my shoulder to get out of the house. So it definitely, he helps get me out of the house because that is super helpful. And to that point, especially during this pandemic, vitamin D is as essential gets. And vitamin D in the beginning of the day and the end of the day are even more essential. Middle of the day is kind of like, because scientifically it's been proven in the beginning of the day, if you're able to go outside for the first 30 minutes since you wake up, there's some reactions that occur in your body that allows you to have a more positive day, a more positive outlook to life. And in the, like, let's just say you had a heavy dinner, if you just take a light 15-minute walk, that helps with the digestive process. And if your body's able to catalyze all the food in your stomach before you go to bed, you have a more restful night's sleep and you wake up feeling better. And, you know, try not to eat 3 hours before bed. After you eat dinner, take a light walk. There's actual science behind that. This guy, Albert Huberman, I forget where he is, but he's a Stanford scientist and he's a YouTube teacher. I'll share the link in our follow-up email. But he basically shares scientific details about all these different things like fasting, this, that, you know, weight loss, all these different things. So many good golden nuggets. And that's one of the things he said. It's like, yeah, you don't have to do heavy exercise. Just walk a little bit, you know, enough for your stomach to process things. So there's so many important benefits of taking a walk to reset, you know. So we found that very helpful to add. And this second bit is very powerful, actually. Find your most productive time of the day and plan the day around it. I know everybody's going to say, oh, this doesn't work for me because that's not how my life works, you know, but you don't get to your goal in like half a day, right? Like it doesn't happen overnight. Like you attain towards it. I'm a night owl. I work best in the middle of the night, but that's when my kids sleep and I can't, like they wake up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. They don't care if I'm awake or not or how tired I am. They're awake. Life goes on. So now I have to adjust myself and find out that I have to finish work by 10 p.m. Like if I do anything beyond that, that's not positive for me in the morning, right? But Sharon, I think she has some good examples of how you could structure things around your work schedule that makes you more productive than less.
Yeah, so it's good to think about, are you a morning person? Are you a night person? The people in your household that depend upon you, are they up and stirring in the morning? Do you need to get up before they get up so you so you can have that unclaimed time before your kids wake up? It's good to think about those things. And then that's the time when you want to target your to-do list and get some of those critical emails done, the proposals you need to write, because that's when you can get yourself in the zone of concentration. If you have one-on-ones and you have to connect with people, you probably want to plan on doing that at a time that doesn't compete with your most productive time of the day. But you might have to consider that if you are located in one place and you have partners that you need to connect with that are in other time zones, then you have to compromise because there might be one slot of time during the day where everyone can get on that call. So maybe one day a week could be protect that time slot. So it's at least one time a week you have that most productive time to yourself and really claim that. It's really important. The next tip is to make time for self-care. I think I've heard self-care so much during the pandemic, but it means something different to everyone. Self-care doesn't have to be you know, you're having a meditation moment. I mean, it's really whatever it is for you. I find that sometimes my self-care is like, oh, I'm sitting outside in the sun, watering and gardening. Like, that's my self-care. It's my moment. No one's depending upon me, and I'm feeling at ease. I don't have a screen in front of me, and I don't have to respond to anything. But self-care is different at different moments of the day. Some people, any of the previous tips that we mentioned about taking a walk, drinking water. I mean, I hear that drinking at least 64 ounces of water is really good for your body. So that could be your self-care, drinking more water. It could be exercising. It could be setting those boundaries and turning off your alerts and pings. That could be self-care, to allow you an evening without responding to things.
Yeah, and one of the analogies I like to use for this exact example is, you're on an airplane, knock on wood, all of a sudden something happens and the airplane's starting to go down. All the oxygen masks come out in front of you. You have a little one next to you. Let's just say I have my little 3-year-old next to me. Do I put on his mask first, or do I put on my mask? The air hostess and hostess, they always say to put on your mask first, right? So if I put on my mask, then now I could be helpful for my kid. So if I put on my kid's mask and I put that on in wrong, and I'm done, like my little kid, like, who's going to take care of him, right? If you're not available to take care of him, who's going to take care of him? So it's the same concept with self-care. We ignore ourselves, the majority of us. We tend to ignore our well-being because we're trying to do good by others, and we're trying to do more for others, right? But at a certain point, are you your own fire, or are you taking flames from others? If you can be this indistinguishable fire and like permeate to the world, like, I've taken care of myself, I am good, I am 100% as far as I know, now I could help other people. If you can't help yourself, what we may think is helping other people may not be exactly that. It may be us taking energy from them. I know the fire analogies and all religious texts, and I'm not trying to get all religious here, but almost all texts that I've read, they talk about this internal flame. All Mother Teresa, all these folks that are good human beings that have lived throughout lives, just taking care of others, they've had this flame, this indistinguishable flame about themselves, and they get to that by making sure they're okay, and then they could help others. So that's that concept of self-care. It's cliche, but you got to make time for it. You're running a race, you won't know when to stop and analyze if your tires is still okay. You know, keep going. Tires, your car's going to burn up, and it's going to crash and burn in flames. Right? So let's not get to that. Make time for self-care, self-reflection. Meditation is very important for that. But you know, some people, they may jive with them, meditation or not. You know, everybody has their own unique way of identifying themselves. So back to you, Sharon. Getting
All
our
right.
pro tips to shine. Or did you
Yeah,
have anything else to add there?
nope. Well said. I think you covered it beautifully. The imagery that I get from when I hear you talk is really incredible. Okay, so pro tips to make your leadership skills shine. And that's a really important thing, because we don't want to just be like, oh, we survived, you know, the work from home and, you know, a performance appraisal time. We just have mediocre responses. We want to be that one that shows up with that confidence. We want to know that we made a difference. So these are some tips that will kind of give you some things to think about. Maybe take some steps towards it this week. If we hear of, you know, one thing that, you know, you did different and you were able to take action, that would make Jaz and I so pleased. So first one is be inspiring. And it's so important. I mean, it doesn't have to be, well, the manager didn't do it. No, each and every one of us has an opportunity to be an inspiring person. We want to be the person that is helping others. We want to be the one that is asking others, you know, how can I best support you? How can I help you achieve what you're looking to do? That is what we show up and we want to be perceived as. You know, and as Jaz mentioned earlier, we don't know what's going on people's levels, personal levels. There might be some impacts from COVID that are happening. There might be some other personal things going on. So if a coworker is going through something, don't wait for them to mention it. Just ask them, how are you doing? Is everything okay? I'm here for you. Just be supportive. You don't have to be their best friend to ask them. You could just be a supportive person. That is all different ways to be inspiring.
Yeah, and inspiration starts with them yourself as well, right? Like inspiration is a thing. I know this section to a lot of folks, even to me originally when Sharon said all these things, I was just like, that is so cliche. Why would we do that? You know, but no, it's like cliche is things that are truths, are universal truths, right? Like there are some things in life that you could break it down, and you take all the pieces out of it, and all of a sudden that's the gem. You found the gem, and now you unearthed the gem. And inspiration is one of them. And if you have one team member that's inspired and caring and sharing and all these different attributes, that permeates to another team member being similar in that aspect, and that permeates to another, and then another, and then this exponential effect occurs, and all of a sudden you have a group of human beings that inspire each other, and they strive for inspiration. And that is something, I don't know if you could really teach that. A lot of times it happens very organically, but when you recognize it, take advantage of it. And if you see that inspiration is lost, or you don't see any spark or any kind of a flame anywhere, throw in a question, throw in a little bit of nugget here and there, and see, judge the room, see how people react, and based upon that, see where you could lead them. Or I don't know, like one of the things I've learned in like anything managerial wise is ask the right questions. That could be the inspiration. You know, that could lead a person. You could lead them to the water. They can't force them to drink. You know, like that could be the connection of them. Like, oh, the water. Oh my God, I've been thirsty this entire time. Let me drink that. You know. So, all right. And then the next one is to be aware. What do we mean by being aware? You know, it's like, as I was just talked about, sense the environment, sense the vibe, sense how people are reacting, cold shoulders and things of that nature. To a certain degree, I know in Zoom, we call it now Zoom fatigue. People don't like to show their video all the time and whatnot, but we're virtually connected now. And the majority of the communication that occurs between two human beings when they are physically there or non-physically there are non-spoken words, right? It's the like the shoulder lean, the, you know, like those things. And all these things, they lead to the word. And that's when you create this word to say to another person. If I'm seeing a black screen, I don't know how to react to that. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. So be aware of each other. If you're having struggles with that in this virtual world, show yourself. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable in that. Look, this is me. This is my room. It's my dog. It's my virtual background. You know, my permanent virtual background. He knows when I do presentations and stuff. He comes and hangs out with me. You know, so this become part of the routine. It's normal for me to share my screen, and because it's normal for me, some other team members, you get like that. He actually does that. Tell me, hi. He's too lazy. He's a little older too, so he likes to sleep. So yeah, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of each other, where we are in each other's lives, how do we fit in, those things. It's very important, you know, it's key. Sharon, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, let me add to that. I think this also lends itself really well to think of stakeholder management and making sure that if there's something that's not going to meet its timeline, it's not going to meet the budget, if something has a risk associated with it because now something has changed, is to be communicative and to inform those that are a part of this project or endeavor, and let them know early and often that there might be some kind of deviation to be expecting, and to not wait for them to come and ask for the update. I think it's a really nice way to just keep everyone informed. It builds trust that way, because the stakeholders know that you have it, you are aware of a situation, and you're keeping them informed of what the plan is, the mitigation plan. So when we say be aware, we're thinking all these different things, and we tuck in the stakeholder management in there too. Stakeholder management is a whole other piece, but we want you to think about all the different things that are a part of that. Last hack that we have is be innovative. And everyone's talking about entrepreneurship and innovation, and there's hackathons and wonderful opportunities to unleash the potential in your minds about all these things. We want all of the above. We want you to see a process from fresh new eyes, and make recommendations and suggestions, and get in the practice of seeing opportunities to make improvements. Everybody needs that right now. And just be careful that when we make recommendations, not to expect that things would change. Not everyone is capable of making those changes right away. Might take time. But if you get in the habit of seeing opportunities and challenging, why do we do it this way? Is there a way to make this better? How can we relook at the tasks or the process and make this a better, more efficient, optimize anything? People will start looking at you in a different way. When there's an opportunity to elevate your skills, you're going to be the one that stands out in the leader's eyes.
And innovation comes from all forms of sizes. Just because one human being has made it to the pinnacle of whatever position it is here on earth doesn't mean they're the sole heir of innovation. Innovation could occur in a little child that literally comes to my desk and goes, "Daddy, like that." And you're like, "Oh my God, I've been doing it like this entire time. I can't believe it. It's going to save me 5 minutes a day." And you do the math of how many days it's going to be. And next thing you know, you got a day of your life back, just doing something that's a little bit different. But, you didn't see it from that because we're so ingrained and systematically, to a certain degree, programmed to think a certain particular way, because, schooling is this is where our teachers come in. They're very important human beings to our lives. They prod you, they ask you the right questions, they lead you into a different realm. They may not know the answers, but they led you there, and you could be the innovators in that space without that person bridging that gap for you, where you may never reach your potential to a certain degree. This is why teachers in all our religions and whatnot, they're such important human beings. And I don't know, to a certain degree, I feel today's day and age, we sometimes take them for granted, right? So it would be nice for that innovation to occur, but like tying it back to our actual workplaces, every team member is an important and integral part of the team. Without whichever organization you work for, that team that was created, they thought at that particular time in history that was the most optimal team they could put together to progress whatever it is that they wanted to progress. If you change your mindset to believe that you were put here in an optimal position to be these innovators, to be the change or something like that, you will see things from a different perspective. You won't just see it as like, that's the company I work for, this is the job that I do, X, Y, and Z. You kind of bridge the gap. And believe it or not, I currently I'm a Scrum Master, I'm a senior Scrum Master at Gap. I don't know, maybe I'm not going to be doing this in 5 years, who knows? I really love history. I would like to go back to being like a history teacher or something like that, right? And that possibility exists. But my current journey, the way I'm living through it, is I'm learning so much. And with the learnings, I'm able to provide insight to some human beings that changes their day, and that makes my day, So it's like, can I be of service to others? That is of service to me, you know, it's like a closed loop kind of system, you know, it's just, and then the bubble gets getting bigger. There's more to eat. The pie is bigger. There's pie for everybody in this world, right? It's just a matter of which way you look at it. There's three sides to a coin. I think this is a good one Robert Kiyosaki always talks about. There's heads, there's tails, and then there's the side. If you could take the perspective from the heads and the tail, but see it from the side, change will happen, or you would do great things. Because for a human being to hold two different perspectives and then make their own perspective in life, that's innovation, that's change, you know, that's how it happens. All right, so that was the last pro tip. Sharon, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think if there are questions that we can answer, I don't know if you want to ask live questions or have some pre-loaded questions. What is the preference here?
Sure. Thank you so much, Sharon and Jaz. It's been very, very enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I'm sure the audience, our students they'll definitely benefit. I mean, I've learned so much in terms of, you know, how to do these things. And it's wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's open up, see if anybody has any questions. They do have an assignment based on this. So let's see, from the audience, if you have any questions, please go ahead and.
Mustafa, I have some preloaded ones that we could kick off. And if folks have other questions, then we could jump into those. So maybe let's kick it off with this first question here. What should people who aren't accustomed to remote work do to get psychologically ready for it? Sure.
Yeah, I think I saw this question and I was thinking about it. So some routines, if we have too much routine, might get monotonous. If we just think about, wow, I didn't leave my house all day and maybe the whole week went by and I never left the front door, that could be really hard. So I think implementing some of these things and making sure that you're getting whatever that balance is that you need. You're not working too long, you're taking breaks, you're nourishing your body, drinking water, all those kind of things can help you kind of get ready. And then, I mean, there's that social aspect that cannot be replaced by Zoom. So finding ways to connect with others through the methods that we mentioned, having playful virtual coffee breaks, having a water cooler chat where you're posting photos and acknowledging birthdays, game time, having opportunities to connect outside of I will share my report update today by end of day. I mean, you want to get away from some of those things and just connect as people as much as possible to really sustain yourself through working from home or conducting yourself from your home.
Yep, and to add to that, psychologically, I know for at least me, when I originally was my company, this was many years ago, like 8 years ago, something, they're like, oh, you could work from home for X amount of time. I was just like, I could work from home? Does that mean I have to work? I don't know, right? But what I learned the hard way is psychologically, you got to prepare yourself. Just because you do X amount of work at work doesn't mean you come home and you do less. Right? You have to get yourself psychologically trained in the manner that you have more distractions at home. More things could go wrong at home. There are a lot of things that could go sideways and then the day is gone. And you have to account for those. So to a certain degree, sometimes it is harder to work from home than it is to actually go into the office. So you have to psychologically prepare yourself mentally that it's not going to be easy. We might want to think that, oh, I'm working from home today, so today I get to relax. If you're in that mindset and you stay in that mindset, productivity is going to take a hit. You're going to, a couple of months later, it's just going to be like, what happened to you? You just be so productive. Now you work from home and nothing's happening. So you have to get yourself into that mindset of a routine of getting, you know, self-care and all these different things, creating the boundaries, designated workspaces and all that. So psychologically, I'd just like to add to that. And let's say second question here, how does working from home affect psychological health? I think this leans right back to our first question. what can employers do to make sure that people are staying focused, committed, and happy? I think one thing I've seen at Gap happen quite often is they give us days that they're like, hey, we would strongly suggest for you to take extra time off, or these times during the week, please don't schedule any meetings so that folks get work done, especially on Fridays for X amount of time. So there are things that employers can do, and to a certain degree, just showing good faith, sending an email and saying that, hey, we care. If there are any ways we could help you do better or in any way, please let us know. And then based upon that, I actually do something tangible that'll make a difference in somebody's life. That would be good. Like, I didn't expect these things from Gap, but then they keep doing these things. And it's one of their tenets too of promoting, mental health of human beings. So especially our workers. So they keep promoting these things to help us out. Sharon, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, it makes me think of some of the other clients at Nisum that we have, and some of the arrangements that they're creating is Williams-Sonoma. They've decided that they don't need everyone back in the office at the same time, but they'll submit vaccination cards, and by a team, the team will come back and the team will look at which days are needed to come back. So depending upon the work that they're doing, if they're whiteboarding or they need to do some concept sprint and collaborate a little bit more, there's a need for everyone to be in the same room. They'll have people come back for those type of arrangements and make sure that all the proper social distancing is followed. Other clients of ours at Safeway, they're designating one day a week where people can come in, irrespective if they have a designated team meeting or not. So that way people can start getting used to coming back into the office. And but the overall reduction, the occupancy is down. So it's different ways for not just fully focusing, but it supports a hybrid model.
And Mustafa, I see we're right at time here. So yeah. Maybe you want to bring it home?
I think so. Thanks so much. I want to thank both of you for taking time out of your schedules to meet with us virtually. We hope to have you physically here one day, and that'll be great. And if there's no questions, we will definitely thank you. And if there's anything, we'll keep the conversations going. And would love to hear some of the links that you have. You have a blog that you are maintaining. Would love to share that with everyone here so that we can continue the conversations. And thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you. And yes, we will do a follow-up email with some links to useful tips or games and things of that nature. And I do plan on writing an additional blog with 6 additional hacks that I've kind of been mulling over for the last couple of months. So hopefully if I get that blog out by November, December, I'll share that with this group as well. That would be great.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Good office.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Take care, Sharon. Bye, Jaz.
Bye. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Taha. Thank you, Bakhtiar.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. And I hope all of you have enjoyed. Keep in touch for our next upcoming series in December, inshallah. Looking forward to having all of you. If there's any questions, please drop us an email and we'll definitely get back to you with all of the questions being answered from the speakers themselves.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Taha.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.